Section 5 of Homeric Hymns, Epigrams, and Battle of Frogs and Mice by Homer. Translated by Hugh G. Evelyn White. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. To Aphrodite. Muse, tell me the deeds of golden Aphrodite the Cyprian, who stirs up sweet passion in the gods, and subdues the tribes of mortal men, and birds that fly in air, and all the many creatures that the dry land rears, and all that the sea. All these love the deeds of rich-crowned Cytherea. Yet there are three hearts that she cannot bend nor yet ensnare. First is the daughter of Zeus, who holds the aegis, bright-eyed Athena. For she has no pleasure in the deeds of golden Aphrodite, but delights in wars and in the work of Ares, in strifes and battles, and in preparing famous crafts. She first taught earthly craftsmen to make chariots of war, and cars variously wrought with bronze. And she too teaches tender maidens in the house, and puts knowledge of goodly arts in each one's mind. Nor does laughter-loving Aphrodite ever tame in love Artemis, the huntress with shafts of gold. For she loves archery and the slaying of wild beasts in the mountains, the lyre also, and dancing and thrilling cries and shady woods and the cities of upright men. Nor yet does the pure maiden Hestia love Aphrodite's works. She was the firstborn child of wily Cronos, and youngest too, by will of Zeus who holds the aegis, a queenly maid whom both Poseidon and Apollo sought to wed. But she was wholly unwilling, nay, stubbornly refused. And touching the head of Father Zeus who holds the aegis, she, that fair goddess, sware a great oath, which has in truth been fulfilled, that she would be a maiden all her days. So Zeus the Father gave her an high honour instead of marriage, and she has her place in the midst of the house and has the richest portion. In all the temples of the gods she has a share of honour, and among all mortal men she is chief of the goddesses. Of these three, Aphrodite cannot bend or ensnare the hearts, but of all others there is nothing among the blessed gods or among mortal men that has escaped Aphrodite. Even the heart of Zeus, who delights in thunder, is led astray by her, though he is greatest of all and has the lot of highest majesty. She beguiles even his wise heart whensoever she pleases, and mates him with mortal women, unknown to Hera, his sister and his wife, the grandest far in beauty among the deathless goddesses. Most glorious is she whom wily Cronos with her mother Rhea did beget. And Zeus, whose wisdom is everlasting, made her his chaste and careful wife. But upon Aphrodite herself Zeus cast sweet desire to be joined in love with a mortal man, to the end that, very soon, not even she should be innocent of a mortal's love, lest laughter-loving Aphrodite should one day softly smile and say mockingly among all the gods that she had joined the gods in love with mortal women who bear sons of death to the deathless gods, and had mated the goddesses with mortal men. And so he put in her heart sweet desire for Anchises, who at that time among the steep hills of many-fountained Ida was tending cattle, and in shape was like the immortal gods. Therefore, when laughter-loving Aphrodite saw him, she loved him, and terribly desire seized her in her heart. She went to Cyprus, to Paphos, where her precinct is, and fragrant altar, and passed into her sweet-smelling temple. There she went in, and put to the glittering doors, and there the Graces bathed her with heavenly oil such as blooms upon the bodies of the eternal gods, oil divinely sweet, which she had by her, filled with fragrance. And laughter-loving Aphrodite put on all her rich clothes, and when she had decked herself with gold, she left sweet-smelling Cyprus, and went in haste towards Troy, swiftly travelling high up among the clouds. So she came to many-fountained Ida, the mother of wild creatures, and went straight to the homestead across the mountains. After her came grey wolves fawning on her, and grim-eyed lions, and bears, and fleet leopards, ravenous for deer. And she was glad in heart to see them, and put desire in their breasts, so that they all mated, two together, about the shadowy combs. But she herself came to the neat-built shelters, and him she found left quite alone in the homestead, the hero Anchises, who was comely as the gods. All the others were following the herds over the grassy pastures, and he, left quite alone in the homestead, was roaming hither and thither and playing thrillingly upon the lyre. And Aphrodite, the daughter of Zeus, stood before him, being like a pure maiden in height and mien, that he should not be frightened when he took heed of her with his eyes. Now when Anchises saw her, he marked her well and wondered at her mien and height and shining garments. For she was clad in a robe outshining the brightness of fire, a splendid robe of gold, enriched with all manner of needlework, which shimmered like the moon over her tender breasts, a marvel to see. Also she wore twisted brooches and shining earrings in the form of flowers, and round her soft throat were lovely necklaces. And Anchises was seized with love, and said to her, "Hail, lady, whoever of the blessed ones you are that are come to this house, whether Artemis or Leto or golden Aphrodite or high-born Themis or bright-eyed Athena, or maybe you are one of the Graces come hither, who bear the gods company and are called immortal, or else one of the nymphs who haunt the pleasant woods, or of those who inhabit this lovely mountain and the springs of rivers and grassy meads. I will make you an altar upon a high peak in a far-seen place, and will sacrifice rich offerings to you at all seasons. And do you feel kindly towards me, and grant that I may become a man very eminent among the Trojans, and give me strong offspring for the time to come. As for my own self, let me live long and happily, seeing the light of the sun, and come to the threshold of old age, a man prosperous among people." Thereupon Aphrodite, the daughter of Zeus, answered him, "Anchises, most glorious of all men born on earth, know that I am no goddess. Why do you liken me to the deathless ones? Nay, I am but a mortal, and a woman was the mother that bare me. Atreus of famous name is my father, if so be you have heard of him, and he reigns over all Phrygia, rich in fortresses. But I know your speech well beside my own, for a Trojan nurse brought me up at home. She took me from my dear mother, and reared me thenceforth when I was a little child. So comes it then that I know well your tongue also. And now the slayer of Argus with the golden wand has caught me up from the dance of huntress Artemis, her with the golden arrows. For there were many of us, nymphs and marriageable maidens, playing together, and then innumerable company encircled us. From these the slayer of Argus with the golden wand rapt me away. He carried me over many fields of mortal men, and over much land untilled and unpossessed, where savage wild beasts roam through shady combes, until I thought never again to touch the life-giving earth with my feet. And he said that I should be called the wedded wife of Anchises, and should bear you goodly children. But when he had told and advised me, he, the strong slayer of Argos, went back to the families of the deathless gods, while I am now come to you, for unbending necessity is upon me. But I beseech you by Zeus and by your noble parents, for no base folk could get such a son as you. Take me now, stainless and unproved in love, and show me to your father and careful mother, and to your brothers sprung from the same stock. I shall be no ill-liking daughter for them, but a likely. Moreover, send a messenger quickly to the swift-horsed Phrygians, to tell my father and my sorrowing mother, and they will send you gold in plenty, and woven stuffs, many splendid gifts. Take these as bride-piece. So do, and then prepare the sweet marriage that is honourable in the eyes of men and deathless gods." When she had so spoken, the goddess put sweet desire in his heart, and Anchises was seized with love, so that he opened his mouth and said, "If you are a mortal, and a woman was the mother who bare you, and Atreus of famous name is your father, as you say, and if you are come here by the will of Hermes the immortal guide, and are to be called my wife always, then neither god nor mortal man shall here restrain me till I have lain with you in love right now. No, not even if far-shooting Apollo himself should launch grievous shafts from his silver bow. Willingly would I go down into the house of Hades, O lady, beautiful as the goddesses, once I had gone up to your bed. So speaking, he caught her by the hand, and laughter-loving Aphrodite, with face turned away and lovely eyes downcast, crept to the well-spread couch, which was already laid with soft coverings for the hero, and upon it lay skins of bears and deep-roaring lions, which he himself had slain in the high mountains. And when they had gone up upon the well-fitted bed, first Anchises took off her bright jewellery of pins and twisted brooches and earrings and necklaces, and loosed her girdle and stripped off her bright garments, and laid them down upon a silver-studded seat. Then, by the will of the gods and destiny, he lay with her, a mortal man with an immortal goddess, not clearly knowing what he did. But at the time when the herdsmen drive their oxen and hardy sheep back to the fold from the flowery pastures, even then Aphrodite poured soft sleep upon Anchises, but herself put on her rich raiment. And when the bright goddess had fully clothed herself, she stood by the couch, and her head reached to the well-hewn roof-tree. From her cheeks shone unearthly beauty, such as belongs to rich-crowned Cytherea. Then she aroused him from sleep, and opened her mouth, and said, "Up, son of Dardanus, why sleep you so heavily? And consider whether I look as I did when you first saw me with your eyes." So she spake, and he awoke in a moment, and obeyed her. But when he saw the neck and lovely eyes of Aphrodite, he was afraid, and turned his eyes aside another way, hiding his comely face with his cloak. Then he uttered winged words, and entreated her. "So soon as I ever saw you with my eyes, goddess, I knew that you were divine, but you did not tell me truly. Yet by Zeus who holds the aegis, I beseech you, leave me not to lead a palsied life among men, but have pity on me, for he who lies with a deathless goddess is no hale man afterwards." Then Aphrodite, the daughter of Zeus, answered him, "Anchises, most glorious of mortal men, take courage, and be not too fearful in your heart. You need fear no harm from me, nor from the other blessed ones, for you are dear to the gods. And you shall have a dear son who shall reign among the Trojans, and children's children after him, springing up continually. His name shall be Aeneas, because I felt awful grief in that I laid me in the bed of a mortal man. Yet are those of your race always the most like to gods of all mortal men in beauty and in stature. Verily, wise Zeus carried off golden-haired Ganymedes, because of his beauty, to be amongst the deathless ones, and poured drink for the gods in the house of Zeus, a wonder to see, honoured by all the immortals as he draws the red nectar from the golden bowl. But grief that could not be soothed filled the heart of Tros, for he knew not whither the heaven-sent whirlwind had caught up his dear son, so that he mourned him always unceasingly, until Zeus pitied him and gave him high-stepping horses, such as carry the immortals, as recompense for his son. These he gave him as a gift, and at the command of Zeus, the guide, the slayer of Argus, told him all, and how his son would be deathless and unageing, even as the gods. So when Tros heard these tidings from Zeus, he no longer kept mourning, but rejoiced in his heart, and rode joyfully with his storm-footed horses. So also golden-throned Eos rapt away Tithonus, who was of your race, and like the deathless gods. And she went to ask the dark-clouded son of Cronos that he should be deathless and live eternally. And Zeus bowed his head to her prayer and fulfilled her desire. Too simple was queenly Eos, she thought not in her heart to ask youth for him, and to strip him of the slough of deadly age. So while he enjoyed the sweet flower of life, he lived rapturously with golden-throned Eos, the early born, by the streams of ocean, at the ends of the earth. But when the first grey hairs began to ripple from his comely head and noble chin, queenly Eos kept away from his bed, though she cherished him in her house, and nourished him with food and ambrosia, and gave him rich clothing. But when loathsome old age pressed full upon him, and he could not move nor lift his limbs, this seemed to her in her heart the best counsel. She laid him in a room, and put to the shining doors. There he babbles endlessly, and no more has strength at all, such as once he had in his supple limbs. I would not have you be deathless among the deathless gods, and live continually after such sort. Yet if you could live on such as now you are, in look and in form, and be called my husband, sorrow would not then enfold my careful heart. But as it is, harsh old age will soon enshroud you, ruthless age, which stands some day at the side of every man, deadly, wearying, dreaded even by the gods. And now, because of you, I shall have great shame among the deathless gods henceforth, continually. For until now they feared my gibes and the wiles by which, or soon or late, I mated all the immortals with mortal women, making them all subject to my will. But now my mouth shall no more have this power among the gods, for very great has been my madness, my miserable and dreadful madness, and I went astray out of my mind, who have gotten a child beneath my girdle, mating with a mortal man. As for the child, as soon as he sees the light of the sun, the deep-breasted mountain nymphs who inhabit this great and holy mountain shall bring him up. They rank neither with mortals nor with immortals. Long indeed do they live, eating heavenly food, and treading the lovely dance among the immortals, and with them the Silene and the sharp-eyed slayer of Argus mate in the depths of pleasant caves. But at their birth pines or high-topped oaks spring up with them upon the fruitful earth, beautiful, flourishing trees, towering high upon the lofty mountains. And men call them holy places of the immortals, and never mortal lops them with the axe. But when the fate of death is near at hand, first those lovely trees wither where they stand, and the bark shrivels away about them, and the twigs fall down, and at last the life of the nymph and of the tree leave the light of the sun together. These nymphs shall keep my son with them, and rear him, and as soon as he is come to lovely boyhood, the goddesses will bring him here to you, and show you your child. But, that I may tell you all that I have in mind, I will come here again towards the 5th year, and bring you my son. So soon as ever you have seen him, a scion to delight the eyes, you will rejoice in beholding him, for he shall be most godlike. Then bring him at once to windy Ilion. And if any mortal man ask you who got your dear son beneath her girdle, remember to tell him as I bid you. Say he is the offspring of one of the flower-like nymphs who inhabit this forest-clad hill. But if you tell all, and foolishly boast that you lay with rich-crowned Aphrodite, Zeus will smite you in his anger with a smoking thunderbolt. Now I have told you all. Take heed, refrain, and name me not, but have regard to the anger of the gods. When the goddess had so spoken, she soared up to windy heaven. Hail, goddess, queen of well-builded Cyprus! With you have I begun. Now I will turn me to another hymn. To Aphrodite. I will sing of stately Aphrodite, gold-crowned and beautiful, whose dominion is the walled cities of all sea-set Cyprus. There the moist breath of the western wind wafted her over the waves of the loud moaning sea in soft foam, and there the gold-filleted Hours welcomed her joyously. They clothed her with heavenly garments, on her head they put a fine, well-wrought crown of gold, and in her pierced ears they hung ornaments of orichalc and precious gold, and adorned her with golden necklaces over her soft neck and snow-white breasts, jewels which the gold-filleted Hours wear themselves whenever they go to their father's house to join the lovely dances of the gods. And when they had fully decked her, they brought her to the gods, who welcomed her when they saw her, giving her their hands. Each one of them prayed that he might lead her home to be his wedded wife. So greatly were they amazed at the beauty of violet-crowned Cytherea. Hail, sweetly winning, coy-eyed goddess! Grant that I may gain the victory in this contest, and order you my song. And now I will remember you, and another song also. End of Section 5. Section 6 of Homeric Hymns, Epigrams, and Battle of Frogs and Mice by Homer, translated by Hugh G. Evelyn White. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. To Dionysus. I will tell of Dionysus, the son of glorious Semele, how he appeared on a jutting headland by the shore of the fruitless sea, seeming like a stripling in the first flush of manhood. His rich dark hair was waving about him, and on his strong shoulders he wore a purple robe. Presently there came swiftly over the sparkling sea Tyrrhenian pirates on a well-decked ship. A miserable doom led them on. When they saw him, they made signs to one another and sprang out quickly, and seizing him straightway, put him on board their ship exultingly, for they thought him the son of heaven-nurtured kings. They sought to bind him with rude bonds, but the bonds would not hold him, and the withes fell far away from his hands and feet, and he sat with a smile in his dark eyes. Then the helmsman understood all, and cried out at once to his fellows, and said, Madmen, what god is this whom you have taken and bind strong that he is? Not even the well-built ship can carry him. Surely this is either Zeus or Apollo who has the silver bow, or Poseidon, for he looks not like mortal men, but like the gods who dwell on Olympus. Come then, let us set him free upon the dark shore at once. Do not lay hands on him, lest he grow angry and stir up dangerous winds and heavy squalls. So said he, but the master chid him with taunting words. Madman, mark the wind and help hoist sail on the ship. Catch all the sheets. As for this fellow, we men will see to him. I reckon he is bound for Egypt, or for Cyprus, or to the Hyperboreans, or further still. But in the end he will speak out and tell us his friends, and all his wealth, and his brothers, now that Providence has thrown him in our way. When he had said this, he had mast and sail hoisted on the ship, and the wind filled the sail, and the crew hauled taut the sheets on either side. But soon strange things were seen among them. First of all, sweet fragrant wine ran streaming throughout all the black ship, and a heavenly smell arose, so that all the seamen were seized with amazement when they saw it. And all at once a vine spread out both ways along the top of the sail, with many clusters hanging down from it, and a dark ivy plant twined about the mast, blossoming with flowers, and with rich berries growing on it. And all the thole-pins were covered with garlands. When the pirates saw all this, then at last they bade the helmsman to put the ship to land. But the god changed into a dreadful lion there on the ship, in the bows, and roared loudly. Amidships also he showed his wonders, and created a shaggy bear, which stood up ravening, while on the forepeak was the lion glaring fiercely with scowling brows. And so the sailors fled into the stern, and crowded bemused about the right-minded helmsman, until suddenly the lion sprang upon the master and seized him. And when the sailors saw it, they leapt out overboard, one and all, into the bright sea, escaping from a miserable fate, and were changed into dolphins. But on the helmsman Dionysus had mercy, and held him back and made him altogether happy, saying to him, "Take courage, good, you have found favour with my heart. I am loud crying Dionysus, whom Cadmus' daughter Semele bare of union with Zeus. Hail, child of fair-faced Semele! He who forgets you can in no wise order sweet song." To Ares. Ares, exceeding in strength, chariot rider, golden helmed, doughty in heart, shield bearer, saviour of cities, harnessed in bronze, strong of arm, unwearying, mighty with the spear, O defensive Olympus, father of warlike victory, ally of Themis, stern governor of the rebellious, leader of righteous men, sceptred king of manliness, who whirl your fiery sphere among the planets in their sevenfold courses through the ether, wherein your blazing steeds ever bear you above the third firmament of heaven. Hear me, helper of men, giver of dauntless youth. Shed down a kindly ray from above upon my life and strength of war, that I may be able to drive away bitter cowardice from my head and crush down the deceitful impulses of my soul. Restrain also the keen fury of my heart, which provokes me to tread the ways of blood-curdling strife. Rather, O blessed one, give you me boldness to abide within the harmless laws of peace, avoiding strife and hatred, and the violent fiends of death. To Artemis. Muse, sing of Artemis, sister of the far shooter, the virgin who delights in arrows, who was fostered with Apollo. She waters her horses from Meles deep in reeds, and swiftly drives her all-golden chariot through Smyrna to vine-clad Claros, where Apollo, god of the silver bow, sits waiting for the far-shooting goddess who delights in arrows. And so hail to you, Artemis, in my song, and to all goddesses as well. Of you first I sing, and with you I begin. Now that I have begun with you, I will turn to another song. To Aphrodite. Of Cytherea, born in Cyprus, I will sing. She gives kindly gifts to men. Smiles are ever on her lovely face, and lovely is the brightness that plays over it. Hail, goddess, queen of well-built Salamis and sea-girt Cyprus! Grant me a cheerful song, and now I will remember you, and another song also. To Athena. Of Pallas Athena, guardian of the city, I begin to sing. Dread is she, and with Ares she loves deeds of war, the sack of cities, and the shouting, and the battle. It is she who saves the people as they go out to war and come back. Hail, goddess, and give us good fortune with happiness. To Hera. I sing of golden-throned Hera, whom Rhea bare. Queen of the immortals is she, surpassing all in beauty. She is the sister and the wife of loud-thundering Zeus, the glorious one whom all the blessed throughout high Olympus reverence and honour, even as Zeus who delights in thunder. To Demeter. I begin to sing of rich-haired Demeter, awful goddess, of her and of her daughter lovely Persephone. Hail, goddess, keep this city safe, and govern my song. To the mother of the gods. I prithee, clear-voiced Muse, daughter of mighty Zeus, sing of the mother of all gods and men. She is well pleased with the sound of rattles and of timbrels, with the voice of flutes and the outcry of wolves and bright-eyed lions, with echoing hills and wooded coombes. And so hail to you in my song, and to all goddesses as well. To Heracles the lion-hearted. I will sing of Heracles, the son of Zeus, and much the mightiest of men on earth. Alcmena bare him in Thebes, the city of lovely dances, when the dark-clouded son of Cronos had lain with her. Once he used to wander over unmeasured tracts of land and sea at the bidding of King Eurystheus, and himself did many deeds of violence and endured many. But now he lives happily in the glorious home of snowy Olympus, and has neat-ankled Hebe for his wife. Hail, Lord, son of Zeus, give me success and prosperity. To Asclepius. I begin to sing of Asclepius, son of Apollo, and healer of sicknesses. In the Docian plain fair Coronis, daughter of King Phlegyas, bare him, a great joy to men, a soother of cruel pangs. And so, hail to you, Lord! In my song I make my prayer to thee. To the Dioscuri. Sing, clear-voiced muse, of Castor and Polydeuces, the Tyndaridae who sprang from Olympian Zeus. Beneath the heights of Taygetus stately Leda bare them, when the dark-clouded son of Cronos had privily bent her to his will. Hail, children of Tyndareus, riders upon swift horses! To Hermes. I sing of Cyllenian Hermes, the slayer of Argus, lord of Cyllene in Arcadia, rich in flocks, luck-bringing messenger of the deathless gods. He was born of Maia, the daughter of Atlas, when she had mated with Zeus, a shy goddess she. Ever she avoided the throng of the blessed gods, and lived in a shadowy cave. And there the son of Cronos used to lie with the rich-tressed nymph at dead of night, while white-armed Hera lay bound in sweet sleep. And neither deathless god nor mortal man knew it. And so, hail to you, son of Zeus and Maia! With you I have begun. Now I will turn to another song. Hail, Hermes, giver of grace, guide and giver of good things. To Pan. Muse, tell me about Pan, the dear son of Hermes, with his goat's feet and 2 horns, a lover of merry noise. Through wooded glades he wanders with dancing nymphs who foot it on some sheer cliff's edge, calling upon Pan, the shepherd god, long-haired, unkempt. He has every snowy crest and the mountain peaks and rocky crests for his domain. Hither and thither he goes through the close thickets, now lured by soft streams, and now he presses on amongst towering crags and climbs up to the highest peak that overlooks the flocks. Often he courses through the glistening high mountains, and often on the shouldered hills he speeds along slaying wild beasts, this keen-eyed god. Only at evening, as he returns from the chase, he sounds his note, playing sweet and low on his pipes of reed. Not even she could excel him in melody, that bird who in flower-laden spring, pouring forth her lament, utters honey-voiced song amid the leaves. At that hour the clear-voiced nymphs are with him, and move with nimble feet, singing by some spring of dark water, while Echo wails about the mountain top, and the god on this side or on that of the choirs, or at times sidling into the midst, plies it nimbly with his feet. On his back he wears a spotted lynx pelt, and he delights in high-pitched songs, in a soft meadow where crocuses and sweet-smelling hyacinths bloom at random in the grass. They sing of the blessed gods and high Olympus, and choose to tell of such an one as luck-bringing Hermes above the rest, how he is the swift messenger of all the gods, and how he came to Arcadia, the land of many springs and mother of flocks, there where his sacred place is as a god of Cyllene. For there, though a god, he used to tend curly-fleeced sheep in the service of a mortal man, because there fell on him and waxed strong melting desire to wed the rich-tressed daughter of Dryops. And there he brought about the merry marriage. And in the house she bare Hermes a dear son, who from his birth was marvellous to look upon, with goat's feet and 2 horns, a noisy, merry laughing child. But when the nurse saw his uncouth face and full beard, she was afraid, and sprang up and fled and left the child. Then luck-bringing Hermes received him and took him in his arms. Very glad in his heart was the god. And he went quickly to the abodes of the deathless gods, carrying his son wrapped in warm skins of mountain hares, and set him down beside Zeus and showed him to the rest of the gods. Then all the immortals were glad in heart, and Bacchic Dionysus in especial, and they called the boy Pan, because he delighted all their hearts. And so, hail to you, Lord! I seek your favour with a song, and now I will remember you, and another song also. End of section 6. Section 7 of Homeric Hymns, Epigrams, and Battle of Frogs and Mice by Homer. Translated by Hugh G. Evelyn White. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. To Hephaestus. Sing, clear-voiced muse of Hephaestus, famed for inventions. With bright-eyed Athena he taught men glorious crafts throughout the world, men who before used to dwell in caves in the mountains like wild beasts. But now that they have learned crafts through Hephaestus, the famed worker, easily they live a peaceful life in their own houses the whole year round. Be gracious, Hephaestus, and grant me success and prosperity. To Apollo. Phoebus, of you even the swan sings with clear voice to the beating of his wings as he alights upon the bank by the eddying river Peneus. And of you the sweet-tongued minstrel, holding his high-pitched lyre, always sings both first and last. And so, hail to you, Lord! I seek your favour with my song. To Poseidon. I begin to sing about Poseidon, the great god, mover of the earth and fruitless sea, god of the deep, who is also lord of Helicon and wide Aegae. A twofold office the gods allotted you, O shaker of the earth, to be a tamer of horses and a saviour of ships. Hail, Poseidon, holder of the earth, dark-haired lord! O blessed one, be kindly in heart, and help those who voyage in ships. To the son of Cronos, most high. I will sing of Zeus, chiefest among the gods and greatest, all-seeing, the lord of all, the fulfiller who whispers words of wisdom to Themis as she sits leaning towards him. Be gracious, all-seeing son of Cronos, most excellent and great. To Hestia. Hestia, you who tend the holy house of the Lord Apollo, the far-shooter at goodly Pytho, with soft oil dripping ever from your locks, come now into this house, come, having one mind with Zeus the all-wise, draw near, and withal bestow grace upon my song. To the Muses and Apollo. I will begin with the Muses and Apollo and Zeus. For it is through the Muses and Apollo that there are singers upon the earth and players upon the lyre, but kings are from Zeus. Happy is he whom the Muses love, sweet flows speech from his lips. Hail, children of Zeus, give honour to my song, and now I will remember you, and another song also. To Dionysus. I begin to sing of ivy-crowned Dionysus, the loud-crying god, splendid son of Zeus and glorious Semele. The rich-haired nymphs received him in their bosoms from the Lord his father, and fostered and nurtured him carefully in the dells of Nysa, where by the will of his father he grew up in a sweet-smelling cave, being reckoned among the immortals. But when the goddesses had brought him up, a god oft-hymned, then began he to wander continually through the woody combes, thickly wreathed with ivy and laurel, and the nymphs followed in his train, with him for their leader, and the boundless forest was filled with their outcry. And so hail to you, Dionysus, god of abundant clusters. Grant that we may come again rejoicing to this season, and from that season onwards for many a year. To Artemis. I sing of Artemis, whose shafts are of gold, who cheers on the hounds, the pure maiden, shooter of stags, who delights in archery, own sister to Apollo with the golden sword. Over the shadowy hills and windy peaks she draws her golden bow, rejoicing in the chase, and sends out grievous shafts. The tops of the high mountains tremble, and the tangled wood echoes awesomely with the outcry of beasts. Earth quakes, and the sea also, where fishes shoal. But the goddess with a bold heart turns every way, destroying the race of wild beasts. And when she is satisfied and has cheered her heart, this huntress who delights in arrows slackens her supple bow and goes to the great house of her dear brother Phoebus Apollo, to the rich land of Delphi, there to order the lovely dance of the Muses and Graces. There she hangs up her curved bow and her arrows, and heads and leads the dances, gracefully arrayed, while all they utter their heavenly voice, singing how neat-ankled Leto bare children supreme among the immortals, both in thought and in deed. Hail to you, children of Zeus and rich-haired Leto, and now I will remember you, and another song also. To Athena. I begin to sing of Pallas Athena, the glorious goddess, bright-eyed, inventive, unbending of heart, pure virgin, saviour of cities, courageous Tritogenia. Wise Zeus himself bare her from his awful head, arrayed in warlike arms of flashing gold, and awe seized all the gods as they gazed. But Athena sprang quickly from the immortal head, and stood before Zeus who holds the aegis, shaking a sharp spear. Great Olympus began to reel horribly at the might of the bright-eyed goddess, and earth round about cried fearfully, and the sea was moved and tossed with dark waves, while foam burst forth suddenly. The bright son of Hyperion stopped his swift-footed horses a long while, until the maiden Pallas Athena had stripped the heavenly armour from her immortal shoulders, and wise Zeus was glad. And so hail to you, daughter of Zeus who holds the aegis. Now I will remember you, and another song as well. To Hestia. Hestia, in the high dwellings of all, both deathless gods and men who walk on earth, you have gained an everlasting abode and highest honour. Glorious is your portion and your right. For without you mortals hold no banquet, where one does not duly pour sweet wine in offering to Hestia both first and last. And you, slayer of Argus, son of Zeus and Maia, messenger of the blessed gods, bearer of the golden rod, giver of good, be favourable and help us, you and Hestia, the worshipful and dear. Come and dwell in this glorious house in friendship together. For you two, well knowing the noble actions of men, aid on their wisdom and their strength. Hail, daughter of Cronos, and you also, Hermes, bearer of the golden rod. Now I will remember you, and another song also. To Earth, the mother of all. I will sing of well-founded Earth, mother of all, eldest of all beings. She feeds all creatures that are in the world, all that go upon the goodly land, and all that are in the paths of the seas, and all that fly. All these are fed of her store. Through you, O Queen, men are blessed in their children and blessed in their harvests, and to you it belongs to give means of life to mortal men and to take it away. Happy is the man whom you delight to honour. He has all things abundantly. His fruitful land is laden with corn, his pastures are covered with cattle, and his house is filled with good things. Such men rule orderly in their cities of fair women. Great riches and wealth follow them. Their sons exult with ever-fresh delight, and their daughters in flower-laden bands play and skip merrily over the soft flowers of the field. Thus it is with those whom you honour, O holy goddess, bountiful spirit. Hail, mother of the gods, wife of starry heaven, freely bestow upon me for this my song substance that cheers the heart. And now I will remember you, and another song also. To Helios. And now, O Muse Calliope, daughter of Zeus, begin to sing of glowing Helios, whom mild-eyed Euryphaessa, the far-shining one, bare to the son of earth and starry heaven. For Hyperion wedded glorious Euryphaessa, his own sister, who bare him lovely children, rosy-armed Eos and rich-tressed Selene, and tireless Helios, who is like the deathless gods. As he rides in his chariot, he shines upon men and deathless gods, and piercingly he gazes with his eyes from his golden helmet. Bright rays beam dazzlingly from him, and his bright locks streaming from the temples of his head gracefully enclose his far-seen face. A rich, fine-spun garment glows upon his body and flutters in the wind, and stallions carry him. Then, when he has stayed his golden-yoked chariot and horses, he rests there upon the highest point of heaven, until he marvellously drives them down again through heaven to ocean. Hail to you, Lord! Freely bestow on me substance that cheers the heart. And now that I have begun with you, I will celebrate the race of mortal men half divine, whose deeds the Muses have showed to mankind. To Selene. And next, sweet-voiced Muses, daughters of Zeus, well skilled in song, tell of the long-winged moon. From her immortal head a radiance is shown from heaven and embraces earth, and great is the beauty that ariseth from her shining light. The air, unlit before, glows with the light of her golden crown, and her rays beam clear whensoever bright Selene, having bathed her lovely body in the waters of ocean, and donned her far-gleaming raiment, and yoked her strong-necked shining team, drives on her long-maned horses at full speed, at eventime in the mid-month. Then her great orbit is full, and then her beams shine brightest as she increases. So she is sure token and a sign to mortal men. Once the son of Cronos was joined with her in love, and she conceived and bare a daughter Pandia, exceedingly lovely amongst the deathless gods. Hail, white-armed goddess, bright Selene, mild, bright-tressed queen! And now I will leave you, and sing the glories of men half divine, whose deeds minstrels, the servants of the Muses, celebrate with lovely lips. To the Dioscuri. Bright-eyed Muses, tell of the Tindaridae, the sons of Zeus, glorious children of neat-ankled Leda, Castor the tamer of horses, and blameless Polydeuces. When Leda had lain with the dark-clouded son of Cronos, she bare them beneath the peak of the great hill Taygetus, children who are deliverers of men on earth, and of swift-going ships when stormy gales rage over the ruthless sea. Then the shipmen call upon the sons of great Zeus with vows of white lambs, going to the forepart of the prow. But the strong wind and the waves of the sea lay the ship under water, until suddenly these two are seen darting through the air on tawny wings. Forthwith they allay the blasts of the cruel winds, and still the waves upon the surface of the white sea. Fair signs are they and deliverance from toil. And when the shipmen see them they are glad, and have rest from their pain and labour. Hail, Tindaridae, riders upon swift horses! Now I will remember you, and another song also. End of section 7. Section 8 of Homeric Hymns, Epigrams, and Battle of Frogs and Mice by Homer. Translated by Hugh G. Evelyn White. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Epigrams. Have reverence for him who needs a home and a stranger's dole. All ye who dwell in the high city of Cyme, the lovely maiden, hard by the foothills of lofty Sardini, ye who drink the heavenly water of the divine stream, eddying Hermus, whom deathless Zeus begot. Speedily may my feet bear me to some town of righteous men, for their hearts are generous, and their wit is best. I am a maiden of bronze, and am set upon the tomb of Midas. While the waters flow, and tall trees flourish, and the sun rises and shines, and the bright moon also, while rivers run, and the sea breaks on the shore, ever remaining on this mournful tomb, I tell the passer-by that Midas here lies buried. To what a fate did Zeus the Father give me a prey, even while he made me to grow, a babe at my mother's knee! By the will of Zeus who holds the aegis, the people of Phricon, riders of wanton horses, more active than raging fire in the test of war, once built the towers of Aeolian Smyrna, wave-shaken neighbour to the sea, through which glides the pleasant stream of sacred Meles. Thence arose the daughters of Zeus, glorious children, and would fain have made famous that fair country and the city of its people. But in their folly those men scorned the divine voice and renown of song, and in trouble shall one of them remember this hereafter, he who with scornful words to them contrived my fate. Yet I will endure the lot which heaven gave me, even at my birth, bearing my disappointment with a patient heart. My dear limbs yearn not to stay in the sacred streets of Cyme, but rather my great heart urges me to go unto another country, small though I am. Thestorides, full of many things there are that mortals cannot sound, but there is nothing more unfathomable than the heart of man. Hear me, Poseidon, strong shaker of the earth, ruler of widespread tawny Helicon, give a fair wind and a sight of safe return to the shipmen who speed and govern this ship, and grant that when I come to the nether slopes of towering Mimas, I may find honourable God-fearing men. Also may I avenge me on the wretch who deceived me and grieved Zeus, the lord of guests, and his own guest table. Queen Earth, all bounteous giver of honey-hearted wealth, how kindly it seems you are to some, and how intractable and rough for those with whom you are angry! Sailors who rove the seas, and whom a hateful fate has made as the shy sea-fowl, living an unenviable life, observe the reverence due to Zeus who rules on high, the god of strangers. For terrible is the vengeance of this god afterwards for whosoever has sinned. Strangers, a contrary wind has caught you, but even now take me aboard, and you shall make your voyage. Another sort of pine shall bear a better fruit than you upon the heights of furrowed windy Ida. For there shall mortal men get the iron that Ares loves, so soon as the Cebrenians shall hold the land. Glaucus, watchman of flocks, a word I will put in your heart. First, give the dogs their dinner at the courtyard gate, for this is well. The dog first hears a man approaching, and the wild beast coming to the fence. Goddess, nurse of the young, give ear to my prayer, and grant that this woman may reject the love embraces of youth, and dote on grey-haired old men, whose powers are dulled, but whose hearts still desire. Children are a man's crown, towers of a city, horses are the glory of a plain, and so are ships of the sea. Wealth will make a house great, and reverend princes seated in assembly are a goodly sight for the folk to see. But a blazing fire makes a house look more comely upon a winter's day, when the son of Cronos sends down snow. Potters, if you will give me a reward, I will sing for you. Come then, Athena, with hand upraised over the kiln. Let the pots and all the dishes turn out well, and be well fired. Let them fetch good prices, and be sold in plenty in the market, and plenty in the streets. Grant that the potters may get great gain, and grant me so to sing to them. But if you turn shameless and make false promises, then I call together the destroyers of kilns, shatter and smash and char and crash and crude bake, who can work this craft much mischief. Come all of you, and sack the kiln yard and the buildings. Let the whole kiln be shaken up to the potter's loud lament. As a horse jaw grinds, so let the kiln grind to powder all the pots inside. And you too, daughter of the sun, Circe the witch, come and cast cruel spells, hurt both these men and their handiwork. Let Chiron also come, and bring many centaurs, all that escaped the hands of Heracles, and all that were destroyed. Let them make sad havoc of the pots, and overthrow the kiln, and let the potters see the mischief and be grieved. But I will gloat as I behold their luckless craft. And if any one of them stoops to peer in, let all his face be burned up, that all men may learn to deal honestly. Let us betake to the house of some man of great power, one who bears great power and is greatly prosperous always. Open of yourselves, you doors, for mighty wealth will enter in, and with wealth comes jolly mirth and gentle peace. May all the corn bins be full, and the mass of dough always overflowing the kneading trough. Now set before us cheerful barley pottage, full of sesame. Your son's wife, driving to this house with strong-hoofed mules, shall dismount from her carriage to greet you. May she be shod with golden shoes as she stands weaving at the loom. I come, and I come yearly, like the swallow that perches light-footed in the forepart of your house, but quickly bring. If you will give us anything, well, but if not, we will not wait, for we are not come here to dwell with you. Homer, hunters of deep-sea prey, have we caught anything? Fisherman, all that we caught we left behind, and all that we did not catch we carry home. Homer, aye, for of such fathers you are sprung as neither hold rich lands nor tend countless sheep. End of section 8. Section 9 of Homeric Hymns, Epigrams, and Battle of Frogs and Mice by Homer. Translated by Hugh G. Evelyn White. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Battle of Frogs and Mice. Here I begin. And first I pray the choir of muses to come down from Helicon into my heart, to aid the lay which I have newly written in tablets upon my knee. Fain would I sound in all men's ears that awful strife, that clamorous deed of war, and tell how the mice proved their valour on the frogs, and rivalled the exploits of the giants, those earth-born men, as the tale was told among mortals. Thus did the war begin. One day a thirsty mouse, who had escaped the ferret, dangerous foe, set his soft muzzle to the lake's brink, and revelled in the sweet water. There a loud-voiced pond-larker spied him, and uttered such words as these:
Stranger, who are you? Whence come you to this shore, and who is he who begot you? Tell me all this truly, and let me not find you lying, for if I find you worthy to be my friend, I will take you to my house and give you many noble gifts, such as men give to their guests. I am the King Puffjaw, and am honoured in all the pond, being ruler of the frogs continually. The father that brought me up was Mudman, who mated with Water Lady by the banks of Eridanus. I see, indeed, that you are well looking, and stouter than the ordinary, a sceptred king and a warrior in fight. But come, make haste and tell me your descent.
Then Crumb-snatcher answered him and said,
Why do you ask my race, which is well known amongst all, both men and gods and the birds of heaven? Crumb-snatcher am I called, and I am the son of Bread-nibbler. He was my stout-hearted father, and my mother was Quern-licker, the daughter of Ham-gnawer the king. She bare me in the mouse-hole, and nourished me with food, figs, and nuts, and dainties of all kinds. But how are you to make me your friend, who am altogether different in nature? For you get your living in the water, but I am used to eat such foods as men have. I never miss the thrice-kneaded loaf in its neat round basket, or the thin-wrapped cake full of sesame and cheese, or the slice of ham, or liver vested in white fat, or cheese just curdled from sweet milk, or delicious honey cake, which even the blessed gods long for, or any of all those cakes which cooks make for the feasts of mortal men, larding their pots and pans with spices of all kinds. In battle I have never flinched from the cruel onset, but plunged straight into the fray, and fought among the foremost. I fear not man, though he has a big body, but run along his bed, and bite the tip of his toe, and nibble at his heel, and the man feels no hurt, and his sweet sleep is not broken by my biting. But there are two things I fear above all else the whole world over, the hawk and the ferret, for these bring great grief on me, and the piteous trap wherein is treacherous death. Most of all I fear the ferret of the keener sort, which follows you still even when you dive down your hole. I gnaw no radishes and cabbages and pumpkins, nor feed on green leeks and parsley, for these are food for you who live in the lake.
Then Puffjaw answered him with a smile,
Stranger, you boast too much of belly matters. We too have many marvels to be seen both in the lake and on shore, for the son of Cronos has given us frogs the power to lead a double life, dwelling at will in two separate elements, and so we both leap on land and plunge beneath the water. If you would learn of all these things, 'tis easy done. Just mount upon my back, and hold me tight lest you be lost, and so you shall come rejoicing to my house.
So said he, and offered his back, and the mouse mounted at once, putting his paws upon the other's sleek neck, and vaulting nimbly. While he still saw the land near by, he was pleased, and was delighted with Puffjaw's swimming. But when dark waves began to wash over him, he wept loudly, and blamed his unlucky change of mind. He tore his fur, and tucked his paws in against his belly, while within him his heart quaked by reason of the strangeness, and he longed to get to land, groaning terribly through the stress of chilling fear. He put out his tail upon the water, and worked it like a steering oar, and prayed to heaven that he might get to land. But when the dark waves washed over him, he cried aloud, and said,
Not in such wise did the bull bear on his back the beloved load, when he brought Europa across the sea to Crete, as this frog carries me over the water to his house, raising his yellow back in the pale water.
Then suddenly a water snake appeared, a horrid sight for both alike, and held his neck upright above the water. And when he saw it, Puffjaw dived at once, and never thought how helpless a friend he would leave perishing. But down to the bottom of the lake he went, and escaped black death. But the mouse, so deserted, at once fell on his back in the water. He wrung his paws and squeaked in agony of death. Many times he sank beneath the water, and many times he rose up again kicking, but he could not escape his doom, for his wet fur weighed him down heavily. Then at the last, as he was dying, he uttered these words:
"Ah, Puffjaw, you shall not go unpunished for this treachery. You threw me, a castaway, off your body as from a rock. Vile coward!
On land you would not have been the better man, boxing or wrestling or running. But now you have tricked me and cast me in the water. Heaven has an avenging eye, and surely the host of mice will punish you and not let you escape."
With these words he breathed out his soul upon the water. But Lick Platter, as he sat upon the soft bank, saw him die, and raising a dreadful cry, ran and told the mice. And when they heard of his fate, all the mice were seized with fierce anger, and bade their herald summon the people to assemble towards dawn at the house of Bread Nibbler, the father of hapless Crumb Snatcher, who lay outstretched on the water face up, a lifeless corpse, and no longer near the bank, poor wretch, but floating in the midst of the deep. And when the mice came in haste at dawn, Bread Nibbler stood up first, enraged at his son's death, and thus he spoke:
"Friends, even if I alone had suffered great wrong from the frogs, assuredly this is a first essay at mischief for you all. And now I am pitiable, for I have lost 3 sons. First the abhorred ferret seized and killed one of them, catching him outside the hole. Then ruthless men dragged another to his doom, when by unheard-of arts they had contrived a wooden snare, a destroyer of mice, which they call a trap. There was a third whom I and his dear mother loved well, and him Puffjaw has carried out into the deep and drowned. Come then, and let us arm ourselves, and go out against them when we have arrayed ourselves in rich wrought arms."
With such words he persuaded them all to gird themselves, and Ares, who has charge of war, equipped them. First they fastened on greaves, and covered their shins with green bean pods broken into 2 parts, which they had gnawed out, standing over them all night. Their breastplates were of skin stretched on reeds, skilfully made from a ferret they had flayed. For shields each had the centrepiece of a lamp, and their spears were long needles, all of bronze, the work of Ares, and the helmets upon their temples were peanut shells. So the mice armed themselves. But when the frogs were aware of it, they rose up out of the water, and coming together to one place gathered a council of grievous war. And while they were asking whence the quarrel arose, and what the cause of this anger, a herald drew near, bearing a wand in his paws. Pot Visitor, the son of great-hearted Cheese Carver, he brought the grim message of war, speaking thus:
"Frogs, the mice have sent me with their threats against you, and bid you arm yourselves for war and battle. For they have seen Crumb Snatcher in the water, whom your king Puffjaw slew. Fight then, as many of you as are warriors among the frogs."
With these words he explained the matter. So when this blameless speech came to their ears, the proud frogs were disturbed in their hearts, and began to blame Puffjaw. But he rose up and said:
"Friends, I killed no mouse, nor did I see one perishing. Surely he was drowned while playing by the lake and imitating the swimming of the frogs, and now these wretches blame me, who am guiltless. Come then, let us take counsel how we may utterly destroy the wily mice. Moreover, I will tell you what I think to be the best. let us all gird on our armour, and take our stand on the very brink of the lake, where the ground breaks down sheer. Then, when they come out and charge upon us, let each seize by the crest the mouse who attacks him, and cast them with their helmets into the lake. For so we shall drown these dry hobs in the water, and merrily set up here a trophy of victory over the slaughtered mice.
By this speech he persuaded them to arm themselves. They covered their shins with leaves of mallows, and had breastplates made of fine green beet leaves and cabbage leaves, skilfully fashioned for shields. Each one was equipped with a long pointed rush for a spear, and smooth snail shells to cover their heads. Then they stood in close-locked ranks upon the high bank, waving their spears, and were filled, each of them, with courage. Now Zeus called the gods to starry heaven, and showed them the martial throng and the stout warriors, so many and so great, all bearing long spears, for they were as the host of the centaurs and the giants. Then he asked with a sly smile,
Who of the deathless gods will help the frogs, and who the mice?
And he said to Athena,
My daughter, will you go aid the mice? For they all frolic about your temple continually, delighting in the fat of sacrifice and in all kinds of food.
So then said the son of Cronos. But Athena answered him,
I would never go to help the mice when they are hard pressed, for they have done me much mischief, spoiling my garlands, and my lamps too, to get the oil. And this thing that they have done vexes my heart exceedingly. They have eaten holes in my sacred robe, which I wove painfully, spinning a fine woof on a fine warp, and made it full of holes. And now the money-lender is at me and charges me interest, which is a bitter thing for immortals. For I borrowed to do my weaving, and have nothing with which to repay. Yet even so I will not help the frogs, for they also are not considerable. Once, when I was returning early from war, I was very tired, and though I wanted to sleep, they would not let me even doze a little for their outcry, and so I lay sleepless with a headache until cock-crow. No, gods, let us refrain from helping these hosts, or one of us may get wounded with a sharp spear, for they fight hand to hand, even if a god comes against them. Let us rather all amuse ourselves, watching the fight from heaven.
So said Athena, and the other gods agreed with her, and all went in a body to one place. Then gnats with great trumpets sounded the fell note of war, and Zeus the son of Cronos thundered from heaven a sign of grievous battle. First, Loud Croaker wounded Lickman in the belly, right through the midriff. Down he fell on his face and soiled his soft fur in the dust. He fell with a thud, and his armour clashed about him. Next Troglodyte shot at the son of Mudman, and drove the strong spear deep into his breast. So he fell, and black death seized him, and his spirit flitted forth from his mouth. Then Beate struck Pot Visitor to the heart, and killed him, and Bread Nibbler hit Loudcrier in the belly, so that he fell on his face, and his spirit flitted forth from his limbs. Now when Pondlarker saw Loudcrier perishing, he struck in quickly, and wounded Troglodyte in his soft neck with a rock like a millstone, so that darkness veiled his eyes. Thereat Archimedes was seized with grief, and struck out with his sharp reed, and did not draw his spear back to him again, but felled his enemy there and then. And Lickman shot at him with a bright spear, and hit him unerringly in the midriff. And as he marked Cabbage Eater running away, he fell on the steep bank, yet even so did not cease fighting, but smote that other so that he fell and did not rise again. And the lake was dyed with red blood, as he lay outstretched along the shore, pierced through the guts and shining flanks. Also he slew Cheese Eater on the very brink. But Reedy took to flight when he saw Ham Nibbler, and fled, plunging into the lake and throwing away his shield. Then blameless Pot Visitor killed Brewer, and Waterlarked killed the Lord Ham Nibbler, striking him on the head with a pebble, so that his brains flowed out at his nostrils, and the earth was bespattered with blood. Faultless Muck Coucher sprang upon Lick Platter and killed him with his spear, and brought darkness upon his eyes. And Leeky saw it, and dragged Lick Platter by the foot, though he was dead, and choked him in the lake. But Crumb Snatcher was fighting to avenge his dead comrades, and hit Leeky before he reached the land, and he fell forward at the blow, and his soul went down to Hades. And seeing this, the Cabbage Climber took a clod of mud and hurled it at the mouse, plastering all his forehead and nearly blinding him. Thereat Crumb Snatcher was enraged, and caught up in his strong hand a huge stone that lay upon the ground, a heavy burden for the soil. With that he hit Cabbage Climber below the knee, and splintered his whole right shin, hurling him on his back in the dust. But Croak Person kept him off, and rushing at the mouse in turn, hit him in the middle of the belly, and drove the whole reed spear into him. And as he drew the spear back to him with his strong hand, all his foe's bowels gushed out upon the ground. And when Troglodyte saw the deed, as he was limping away from the fight on the river bank, he shrank back sorely moved, and leaped into a trench to escape sheer death. Then Bread Nibbler hit Puffjaw on the toes. He came up at the last from the lake, and was greatly distressed. And when Leeky saw him fallen forward, but still half alive, he pressed through those who fought in front, and hurled a sharp reed at him, but the point of the spear was stayed, and did not break his shield. Then noble Rueful, like Ares himself, struck his flawless headpiece made of 4 pots. He only among the frogs showed prowess in the throng. But when he saw the other rush at him, he did not stay to meet the stout-hearted hero, but dived down into the depths of the lake. Now there was one among the mice, Slice Snatcher, who excelled the rest, dear son of Gnar, the son of blameless Bread Stealer. He went to his house, and bade his son take part in the war. This warrior threatened to destroy the race of frogs utterly, and splitting a chestnut husk into 2 parts along the joint, put the 2 hollow pieces as armour on his paws. Then straightway the frogs were dismayed, and all rushed down to the lake, and he would have made good his boast, for he had great strength, had not the son of Cronos, the father of men and gods, been quick to mark the thing, and pitied the frogs as they were perishing. He shook his head and uttered this word:
Dear, dear, how fearful a deed do my eyes behold! Slice Snatcher makes no small panic, rushing to and fro among the frogs by the lake. Let us then make all haste, and send warlike Pallas, or even Ares, for they will stop his fighting, strong though he is.
So said the son of Cronos. But Hera answered him:
Son of Cronos, neither the might of Athena nor of Ares can avail to deliver the frogs from utter destruction. Rather, come and let us all go to help them, or else let loose your weapon, the great and formidable Titan killer, with which you killed Capaneus, that doughty man, and great Enceladus, and the wild tribes of giants. Aye, let it loose, for so the most valiant will be slain.
So said Hera, and the son of Cronos cast a lurid thunderbolt. First he thundered, and made great Olympus shake, and then cast the thunderbolt, the awful weapon of Zeus, tossing it lightly forth. Thus he frightened them all, frogs and mice alike, hurling his bolt upon them. Yet even so the army of the mice did not relax, but hoped still more to destroy the brood of warrior frogs. Only the son of Cronos on Olympus pitied the frogs, and then straightway sent them helpers. So there came suddenly warriors with mailed backs and curving claws, crooked beasts that walk sideways, nutcracker jawed, shell hided. Bony they were, flat backed, with glistening shoulders and bandy legs and stretching arms and eyes that looked behind them. They had also 8 legs and 2 feelers, persistent creatures who are called crabs. These nipped off the tails and paws and feet of the mice with their jaws, while spears only beat on them. Of these the mice were all afraid, and no longer stood up to them, but turned and fled. Already the sun was set, and so came the end of the one-day war. End of section 9. End of Homeric Hymns, Epigrams, and Battle of Frogs and Mice by Homer. Translated by Hugh G. Evelyn White.